Good evening. APRC study session of May 3rd. Welcome everyone. And I'm calling the meeting to order. And there is no one wishing to speak under public forum. So the next item of business is non-standard memorial request for Lithia Park, Lower Duck Pond. And staff, please proceed.
Okay, I'll be introducing this item. It's possible that we have the applicant joining us, but I do not see her here yet, but I'll go ahead and get started. So we have a non-standard memorial request. There are two types of memorials within the APRC memorial policy. One is a standard memorial. Those are memorials, plaques that go on benches and tables, and that process is now reviewed and approved by staff. All other memorials that don't fit those standard memorials are considered non-standard memorials, and those requests can be anything, and they are brought to the current parks conservation and maintenance subcommittee for review and recommendation to the full commission to make to either approve or deny. The request before you has been made by Josie Ivanoff, and it would dedicate a plaque at the Lower Duck Pond in Lithia Park to Mary and Dick Mastain. It would be a donation of $26,000, which would be used to upgrade the circulation and filtration system at the Lower Duck Pond, which is it's a improvement that we know needs to be made. And when people contact us about non-standard memorials, we try to match up a needed project with the amount of money they're looking to donate and a place that interests them. This was brought to the current Parks Conservation Maintenance Subcommittee on November 29th, 2022. And that subcommittee made a motion to approve the plaque for consideration to the full commission. The donation would cover the majority of the costs for upgrades to the filtration system based on a quote of just under $34,000. And the request is for the placement of a plaque would go on a boulder adjacent to the Lower Duck Pond, and that it would remain in place for 25 years or the life of the circulation / filtration system, whichever is longer. And there is a photo of the proposed placement as well as a proof of the plaque included in the staff report, which I could bring up on screen if requested to do so. It should be noted, and this was discussed in the current Parks Committee meeting, that if a plaque is adhered to this boulder, it would be necessary to always have a plaque in this location. So after this dedication expired, another plaque would need to be identified to go in its place. So it could potentially become an opportunity for another rededication for this area. Because once the boulder has been disturbed, you can't simply remove it. It would be obvious that there was some damage done to it. I do see that that Josie is here, and I can, as part of the presentation, can bring her into the meeting so she can say a few words about the people that are being memorialized, as is common with this kind of request.
Yes, why don't you bring her in, and for as if it's a forum, so she can speak for 3 minutes, and that'd be great.
Okay.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much, Sean. I'm so happy to be here. Thanks for having me. Just say a few words. My grandparents, Dick and Mary Maston, who this gift would be in honor of, lived on Granite Street across from the park from the time they retired in 1993 up until both of their deaths just in the past few years. And I have my whole childhood is filled with memories of going to the duck pond with my grandma, feeding the ducks. She was always worried if they were hungry or, oh, the parks is changing the food we can give them. So now we're going to go down to the Grange and we're going to get the correct corn. And so when, Sean brought this up, it just seemed like the perfect way to honor her and my grandpa who loved the park and who loved their community. My grandma also led park walks, the guided nature tours, I think 120 or so of them over many years. And so she just loved the wildlife of the park. She loved the birds and she loved the plants. And so she would have just been very, very excited about the opportunity to give the ducks a cleaner pond. And so my family and I are hoping that this all just goes right through and we can improve that water quality and sit on the bench by that boulder and look at that plaque and just remember my grandparents and all of their love for nature and the park. That's all.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Sean, are you finished with the staff report?
I am.
Okay. Before a motion, I have a couple of questions, I think. Does anyone else have any questions for staff?
I have a question.
Go ahead, Commissioner Eldridge.
I'm just wondering is it standard is it normal for both standard and non-standard memorials to have like sunset dates, to have timelines? Is that part of the process?
Yeah, the memorial policy was amended in 2019 for standard memorials to have a sunset, and it's 10 years. And that was mainly because we encountered that people generously donated, 10, 15, 20 plus years ago to redo a bench for $300. And there seemed to be an expectation that that one-time donation means that we will always keep that bench up to a certain a certain condition, right? Which isn't feasible for all of the benches and tables that we have in. So the idea with this putting a sunset on it is that it allows for people to honor their loved ones while also providing a public service. So the donations that come in for this, for tables and benches, will pay for to completely redo the benches, which typically have a 10-year life cycle before they need to be redone again.
Okay, so just a follow up. Does that mean, this is actually just for to benefit my own curiosity. So if you wanted something to be memorialized in perpetuity, that would require some sort of other arrangement that would include maintaining that for a certain period of years. And each one of those is negotiated per person who's interested in creating a memorial of some sort, I assume.
Yeah, something. So if the request is in perpetuity, it becomes a non-standard memorial and is brought before commissioners and negotiated in that forum.
Okay.
And if, Commissioner Lott, if I could just make one more clarification. So typically we bring these to you during regular business meetings where you would be able to make it take action on it. This is a study section, so we're not asking for action at this point, more direction. And the reason we're doing this is so the applicant could easily participate because she does not live locally.
Okay, thank you.
Well, I have a question too.
There's two folks with their hands up, Rick. I don't know if you can see.
Oh, I can't see them. I'm sorry. They show. Oh my.
Commissioner Bachman and Commissioner Adams are both.
Okay, they're off my screen. I am sorry. I'm not sure who's first. How about if we go Commissioner Adams and then Commissioner Bachman? Thank you.
Actually, Jim was first. You can go ahead, Commissioner Bachman. You had your hand up first.
Okay, well, thank you. Well, first, I'd like to thank Josie and her family for offering this donation. I guess I have one concern about using a natural feature of the park as a place to mount the plaque. It seems like, and I don't know if this is anywhere in our policies, but I lean toward protecting as much of the natural feature as we can, all the features in the park as we can in perpetuity. And I'm wondering if this kind of a plaque couldn't be put on a man-made structure similar to the ones like we use for public art, where it would be at the edge of the pool, at the edge of the pond, or wherever the family wanted to locate it, but it wouldn't present what Sean was describing, which is a permanent, scar on the face of a boulder that's been there a long time. So that's my only concern. I think it's a wonderful gesture, and we certainly could use help cleaning up the pond. I just wonder if that wouldn't satisfy the family, some other location to mount the plaque. That's my main concern on this one, because I'd hate to set a precedent where we're suddenly hanging plaques on a lot of our natural features. So that's my statement at this point. I think it's a good opportunity for both parks and the family to do what they want to do, but I would like to shy away from taking a spot on a rock that we don't need to.
Yes, Commissioner Adams, go ahead, please.
Yeah, I actually had a very similar thought to Commissioner Bachman, that it seemed like the presence of a plaque was sort of out of the aesthetic of that particular area, that those rocks, though they're certainly a hardscape feature, right? The rocks probably weren't there when the park was designed. They are a natural hardscape feature that I too had concerns about a plaque on it. So I actually wanted to get over there before the study session, but wasn't able to this week. I'm looking at the building behind it, or maybe even some sort of like freestanding feature somewhere on the edge of the pond or something like that. I too loved reading the story of the Mastains and their relationship to our community and our park. My other question, though I on a personal level really enjoyed the inscription on it, is whether members of the public might be rubbed the wrong way by mentions of mating in a memorial, that the inscription on the plaque said "Swans mate for life," and I personally thought it was very cute, but wonder if someone with a different orientation than me, whether there might be a way to memorialize that relationship without referring specifically to mating. Again, I don't have a personal issue with it, but that was my question. But again, loved hearing the story of this family, and loved the idea of them memorializing their grandparents by cleaning up that duck pond, which is certainly a prime feature in the front of our park.
Okay. Other than, I don't see any hands raised. Oh, yes, I do see a hand raised. Commissioner Lewis, go ahead.
I think Sean had his hand up as well.
Well, go ahead, Commissioner Lewis, and then we'll get to Sean.
Yeah, I think the value of this contribution to parks in the community is very important, because as you know, the the two ponds in the park have had some real issues, but the lower duck pond, since its construction has a hard bottom, we actually set up somewhat of a pool cleaning system to filter and ozonate the water, and it kills algae and any kind of bacteria. And also the leaves are collected. And so it's a much more viable way to keep the lower duck pond clear. So it's a pretty expensive and elaborate system. So, you know, it'd be nice if we could do that similar thing to the upper duck pond, but its construction is completely different. So it's interesting to have people want to memorialize in the park. I mean, who doesn't want to have their loved one's name in the park? That's why we set up all these rules and regulations to do that. But as far as the rock itself, and I think we've done that in the past in places as far as put plaques on rocks around the park system, but I can see the sensitivity of it, and maybe we could go back and discuss maybe a better spot that would be more open and people could see it easier than this location. So I think that would be something we would want to pursue to try to make it acceptable for everybody. But it's important, an important system to keep that lower pond clean. And so I think this is the kind of contribution we look for to really help the community. So we should look at it long and hard. Thank you.
Sean, did you have something you want to say?
I just wanted to quickly provide some background about the conversations on plaque placement. So that was one of the locations. The other location that on the boulder itself, the other location that the applicant and I spoke about was installing a so it would be like a pedestal essentially. So it's like our tree identification signs, but on a larger scale, right? So it would be a pedestal, 2.5 feet high or so at an angle. And the boulder was the preferred location by the applicant, but it's something that other options were discussed, and with direction, it's something that we could look into more.
I'm looking for other hands. Okay, I wanted to read a couple of the criteria for memorial placement. Criteria D, memorials placed outdoors should be part of a landscape design plan and carefully incorporated so as to be part of the fabric of the site rather than a feature of the site. And what was the other? Yes, and criteria G, a conservative approach will be taken regarding requests for memorials in Lithia Park in order to maintain a balance of memorials versus the preservation of the park's natural and historic character. I think this is a really generous offer that this donation. And I think we need to, I really support what other commissioners said, that we need to work with the applicant and with our staff to come up with a solution that would work for everyone. But I think this needs more work. I think it should go back to the subcommittee so that we have a proposal, or maybe even alternative proposals that don't raise the questions been raised. And then I also want to say, just a little bit of a side, in kind of following on what Commissioner Adams said, I had a little bit of, I stopped for a minute with the plaque, what it said, because it referred to swans. And we used to be that Lithia Park, or actually the park's logo was a swan on a pond, and we used to have swans on that pond, but that became really problematic. And I'm just wondering if people understand that this was historically we had swans there. We're not going to have swans there again, even though it's referred to on that sign. I don't know if that's an issue or not, but I just wanted to throw that out. So I have a question for Commissioner Lewis and Commissioner Eldridge. And that is, and actually for Sean. And the question is, at this point, if this came back to the subcommittee, do you have enough direction that you feel like you could help come to a positive resolution?
So
I think so. Yeah.
So the issues that I've heard come up are placement of the plaque on a boulder is a concern, and that language and possibly imagery on the plaque are other potential concerns. And so I would go back to the applicant and obviously she's here and is hearing this right now and have discussions and see if there's a way forward.
I'm not sure I understand your question to me and Commissioner Lewis. Would you mind sort of restating what you're asking me?
Well, I think that there's enough, as a chair, I'm saying that I think there's enough questions about this that it's not really right to come to the commission next week for a vote. And that the most logical way to address that is to send it back to the subcommittee. And so the question is, does the subcommittee members and the staff support feel that they have enough guidance to be able to work towards a resolution?
Oh, and you're asking me because I'm on that subcommittee.
There you go.
Newly, I might add. Yes. Thank you. Thank you for explaining. I understand.
Okay. Well, that being the case, I think we can move on to the next item. We have you have the subcommittee has direction, staff has direction.
Just one. I just want to respect the donees. I don't know what the Josie's desire to I really want to. Is there a way that we can not have it drag out for a long time? Because it sounds like this could be kind of arduous and a longer process. And I just feel for the donation family that probably, so I don't know if there's a way to streamline it, but I just wanted to kind of put that out there that, red tape can be unpleasant experience or process for folks that are looking to just do something good.
I can pull a meeting together of that subcommittee prior to June, so it can be ready to go at the June meeting. The June 7th meeting could be posted as a special meeting, so action could be taken during the Zoom meeting, if that was the desire of commissioners. So you can try to get rid of as much red tape as possible.
Does that sound amenable to folks?
Yeah, it does.
Well, I think we have a plan, and so I wish we could just support this generous donor tonight, but I think that in the long run, it's better to make sure we're moving in a direction that we'll all be in the long term we'll be supportive of. And so let's move on to the next item.
And we could go make a site visit too, I think. Justin mentioned that. I would like to take a look at it rather than the photograph, so I will do that.
Okay, moving right along. The next item is discussion regarding restrictions on alcohol in parks. So I believe Deputy Director Dials is going to lead this discussion.
Thank you. So both staff and some commissioners have been receiving requests from the business community, as well as other received requests from other internal APRC committees, such as the Japanese Garden Subcommittee, for looking at investigating changing the municipal code 10.68.090, which is intoxicating liquor prohibited. It was to include service of alcohol within some of our park locations. Currently, the only exceptions we have to the code are the Kaye Guanajuato and the Oak Knoll Golf Course. What we're looking for tonight is some direction and discussion from the commission on whether or not to add it into the current work plan and bring back some recommendations to the Parks Commission in the near future. As some of you might recall, back in January and February of 2020, staff did do a pretty intensive deep dive into alcohol in parks, and it was at the request of the Lions, who were wanting to put alcohol, have alcohol as part of their event for the Feast of Will. That happens in June, but then COVID happened, and it kind of everything went sideways. So it's something that has been requested by business owners, and we just wanted to open a discussion to see where the commission stands with this and how they would like us to move forward.
May I add one thing to your presentation, Rachel? And that is, as you mentioned, it's municipal code. So just we need to be clear that this is not something that we can change on our own. We could only request of the city council that they change the municipal code, and if they were to do that, if we decided to do it, we would make that recommendation, but it's not something we have control over. Commissioner Eldridge.
Just a quick follow-up question on that. That is all that would require is a vote by city council, proposed language and a vote by city council, or, okay.
I would also say that what we would want to bring back to the commission with some amendments, some potential wording changes to the municipal code is also some procedures and policies for having alcohol in the park and where exactly, what parks, what areas, things like that. And these are all things that we've talked about before, but I think based on what we've talked about before, we probably want to make some adjustments to that. So it would be like the whole package, bring in the whole package.
Commissioner Bachman. You're muted.
I'm trying to, I think I'm okay now. I think I heard Rachel say what I was going to ask, which is this limited to Lithia? Would we be considering other parks? Under what circumstances, special events, all kinds of, with Lithia, we've got the commercial development around it already serving alcoholic drinks. So that fits. And I don't know how other parks would fit into that, but so I'm just, yeah, comprehensive look at it. I think it's something that needs attention. I think that there are, we're right in the middle, smack dab in the middle of wine country and craft brewers. And so it's part of our culture. And I think to the extent we could work it into our parks in a way that it would be controlled and safe, we should look at it. So yes, I would lean toward asking staff to do a comprehensive view of this and come back and present something that we could consider.
Yes, Commissioner Adams.
Rachel, can you give us, I don't know whether you can or not, any insight into, let's say that this item in the code wasn't there, how permitting special events for alcohol consumption works in our city and in our state?
So for events, if someone was to hold an event in a park and Parks and Recreation allowed alcohol within parks, it would just be a matter of the normal special event application that Parks and Recreation does. And depending on if the site was permitted for alcohol, so if you know, say the commission, we move through this whole policy and the commission decides that the band shell, like you can have alcohol at the band shell, it would be a matter of looking at the public events. So if somebody wanted to sell alcohol, like permitting a certain area for people to serve alcohol, purchase alcohol through the OLCC. So there would be like some OLCC permitting that would go along with that. So that's the first one. The other one is just, I think I would probably need to gather a little bit more information on this one, but this is, you know, just having open area in the band shell area where people could bring their own alcohol and, you know, watch a city band concert. And I don't know if at this point, I don't know if that's something that we would want to propose. I think we would want to do it in conjunction with, you know, an event, something like that. And the business owners that I've spoken with and worked with really are looking at ways that they ultimately want to plan, you know, a big concert series. And in order to pay the bands, sponsor bands, they want to be able to provide alcohol to pay for those bands. And that was kind of the route that they were taking. But we could look at all. I mean, we could look at both sides of it.
Yes, Commissioner Lewis.
A little history. In 1917, when the park opened, it was prohibition. So, you know, you have to understand the context of that. And also, there was a group in town that was very organized. The Women's Christian Temperance Union was a big deal. They set up drinking fountains all over town, which, you know, the hope was have some of our wonderful water instead of having a drink. But we've made exceptions at Wanawata Way and the golf course. And back in the day, in 4th of July, there was I think Pioneer Hall had cordoned off an area where they check your ID, you get a wristband, you go in and have a beer, I think. And then also they did that another time at the planning office out front. So I always look at exceptions because that's usually, you can't have just a hard and fast rule that is unbendable and sometimes hard to enforce, because I hate to say it, at the band concerts, there's people drinking, but then, you know, that's just how it happens in this town. So it's not, if we could do it in an organized way. And also the Feast of Will, back in the day, that was a big deal for groups to raise money. And, you know, I could see how you maybe want to wash down a chicken dinner with a nice glass of wine. So, you know, we should really look at this. We've already looked at that small park on the creek and whether we should make an exception there. And so, you know, it's worth the discussion, I think, and to have people think about it at this point and come back and share our ideas, because we want to have it highly controlled. I think at one point, some of the booths set up back in the day during one of the bicycle races they were going to do it in the parking lot near the band shell. And so they have food carts and some means of drinking. And then back in the day, you weren't able to sell in the park, but the Lions wanted to sell water and soda at the band, and all the proceeds, every bit of the proceeds, not just the profit, would go to the intermediate band and orchestra and the high school. So, you know, we should look at all the repercussions and you know, the history and try to put it all together and have a nice discussion about this, and maybe bring in some other people who are interested.
Yes, Commissioner Eldridge.
Yeah, I would absolutely support a further discussion of this, and I think that it is very compatible with one of the biennium goals that we've talked about, which was to bring. I don't know exactly. I don't have the goal right in front of me, but it was something along the lines of bringing together our community through events and athletics and cultural activities within the park. And I do think that this goes hand in hand with that. And when we talk about like people in our town that want to come together to put together this event, but in order to pay for it, they need to have the ability to sell alcohol. That makes me really want to make it happen as soon as we can, so that we can move forward with bringing the parks to life and getting people together and doing these activities. So it's something I'd really like to say yes to, and I think that if we can do it responsibly. And I think part of the key will be putting together those procedures and policies that make it safe and make it smart. So thank you, Rachel, for bringing this to the commissioners.
Commissioner Adams.
Yeah, I agree with what Commissioner Eldridge is sharing. I think that it could be a nice addition and in line with our goals to create more social activities in the park. In the park, I'm going to put that S at the end of that I kind of think that now I don't want people wandering through our parks, you know, drinking 40s of, you know, of whatever that they picked up at the corner store. But I think the idea of permitted events really, in my mind, in virtually any of our parks would, you know, so individual events, somebody wants to throw a dog park fundraiser down at the bottom of Hellman. I have no issue with there being an event at the dog park that includes permitted alcohol consumption or sales. I don't think it has to be limited to events at the band shell. I know that might be controversial, and please, if others disagree with me, speak up. But I think this could be something that we could open. Really, I can't think of exceptions, any of our neighborhood parks, to individual events with permitted consumption or sale of alcohol as part of the event. And that each of those would be considered likely by staff. I suppose we could set up a system where it was considered by the commission, but I think this is probably well within staff's purview, and as long as it's in line with OLCC and city guidance, that we could permit individual events in any of our parks to include sale and or consumption of alcohol.
Yes,
I'll just add that that's kind of, I thought that we were talking about all parks. I guess you're right. Someone did mention limiting it to Lithia, but I would support discussing it in relation to the parks in general, to all of our parklands.
well, I believe what this item was is to get a sense from commissioners, and so staff, do you have sufficient feedback to be able to move forward?
I absolutely have sufficient feedback, and we will bring this back to, we'll get it on the work plan and bring it back to a future meeting sooner rather than later.
Okay.
Just a quick follow-up question. Would that mean that you would come to us with proposed language, or would it?
So I believe the last time that we talked about this, we brought back not only some, we want to take there's proposed language for the actual municipal code change that we worked with the city attorney on, and it was also proposed special permitting within certain park areas. So we would probably bring all of it back at the same time for discussion to the study session.
Okay, great. Thanks.
Okay, well, onward. Discussion on the update of the Parks, Trails, and Open Space Plan. Are you here, Tara?
I am here.
Do you have the?
I will.
And I
I
think
will.
I'm going to go ahead and lead this discussion.
Can everyone see my screen?
Yeah, but we've got we don't have full screen of the first slide. The other slides are also there.
Okay. Let me fix.
Well, I'm going to go ahead and just say that Parks, Trails, and Open Space subcommittee met a couple days ago and had a robust discussion about the update. We discussed additions to the plan, a properties proposed to be removed, and also language that would go with accompany the plan, a summary language. The recommendation from the subcommittee was that the properties that we'll be showing you now be removed from the plan. The subcommittee will meet again to finalize the properties to remain and the language for the summary of the plan. And if you look at this map here, this is the let me see, is this, no, this is an interesting plan because this is not this is a plan that was approved by the Parks Commissioners, but was never approved by the city. That's why if you, and it was called a light update, but do you have another map plan? Because this one really isn't an official map.
I just have the
Okay.
draft.
That's fine, that's fine. So you'll have to pull this up big, but I may miss a few properties, but I'm going to kind of go through this. In the upper left-hand corner, there's Billings property that was on the has been on the plan. Well, actually, let me just go back for actually probably more for viewers than for the commissioners. But we have a current situation with our parkland that's really different from 1991. That was when the comprehensive plan was first developed and approved by the city council. At that time, Ashland had less parks land per capita than Roseburg, Medford, and Klamath Falls, among other cities. And now, 30 years later, 30 plus years later, the efforts to obtain parkland supported by the city's meals tax, Ashland has per capita parkland that ranks it among the state's leaders. So that it makes sense, given that the emphasis now would be on maintaining and rehabilitating existing property and structures, and removing land from the plan that's no longer needed is consistent with that approach. Now, there is property that will remain on the plan for purchase, but it's going to focus on trail connectivity, high natural resource values, and high recreation values. But it's mainly going to be land that is not developed, but rather or needs minimal development, i.e. mainly trails. Commissioner Eldridge, does that fit with your understanding? Yeah, she nodded her head yes.
Yes.
So now I think after with that little more of an introduction, I'd like to talk about the properties. And so in the upper left-hand corner is the Billings property. It's around 100 acres. And it was basically originally on the plan, and I guess it was on the plan for thinking about a city farm or a golf course site. Those were a couple of the main reasons it was on the plan. And so at this time, those uses don't seem feasible or affordable. And so it makes sense to take that off the plan. I don't think I'm going to go to all. Okay, the next one that you're pointing out with your cursor is the Hellman Street property. And I guess I wanted to also say that one of the things that that happened when the original plan was enacted was that more property was put on the plan than what really was needed. But at that time, we could only obtain property from willing sellers. We didn't know who would be willing to sell to us and who wouldn't. So it made sense to put more property on the plan than what we ultimately needed. But now, 30 years later, we have a much better idea of what we need. And so that's why this update, which should happen every 10 years, we're looking at the plan a little differently than we have in the past. So second property that Tara has a cursor on is the Hellman property. And there's two parts to that. One is just the farm part. And then the lower part was the idea was it would be incorporated with some of Hellman School, and it would make an athletic field. Well, the Hellman School property has been developed, so that can't be incorporated. It can't become can no longer become part of that any opportunity for a sports park there. So it just made sense to remove that at this point because it isn't even feasible. The use originally had isn't even feasible. Then let's go over to Willow Wind at this point. Moving on down, I guess that is property H, and that is owned by Ashland School District. The upper part of that land would make potential ball fields, but that's not going to go away whether it's on the plan or not. So the proposal was to remove it from the plan, but keep the property next door, which is actually a bigger piece of property, and which would be designated for future athletic fields if it becomes clear that we need them. It's a little hard to know what we need right now because with all the construction at the Ashland School District properties, we really are really tight for fields right now, but it'll be easier to assess our needs for athletic fields after the construction's done and we see how many ball fields are going to be available for community use. Then let's go down to the bottom of the plan to property G. And that was a large piece of property and a lovely piece of property when it was first put on the plan, but it's now been developed. So it just needs to come off because it's not even possible to be used on the to be developed for parkland. It's been developed for housing, so that's why it's off the plan. Then go up to the YMCA area, and YMCA Park has been removed because that's been sold to the YMCA, and then the properties adjacent to it, which are listed as I and J, are I is actually developed and J has not been developed, but it's obviously no longer needed because we have the East Main Park that has replaced the YMCA Park. So that's just totally unneeded at this point. So that's why we're proposing that that be removed from the plan. There's a small piece of property, which is L. It's on Clay Street, so it's right below the ones we're just talking about. That is a property that has frontage on Jacqueline and on Clay. It was, the thought was that it would be a community park or a neighborhood park because that area is high density. But then when you look at the plan, you see that we have Clay Street, which is just to the north and west. That green area to the north and west is Clay Street Park. And also to the south, we have the Chitwood property, that green area there. And then if you go to the east, you'll see a hatched lines, and that is property in the Mistletoe area that we really, that's really the only place in town that that makes any sense to have a neighborhood park if that area gets developed. But with all those three, the property, the Jacqueline Clay property, just is no longer needed because our quarter mile is more than met by these other properties. And the final one I'd like to talk about is what I call the Provost property, which is O on the map. And that's an area that was thought to be, at one point it was thought to be a potential for an expansion of Oak Knoll Golf Course. That's really nowhere in our plans at this point. And so we're proposing removing that from the plan also. So the recommendation from the subcommittee is removal of these properties. There's a few very small properties that I didn't discuss. And if you have questions about them, we could certainly talk about them also. But at this point, I'm going to open up for the commissioners for any questions they might have. Okay, Commissioner Adams.
Yeah, just a question. So once the school bond projects are done, which should be in the near-ish future, knock on wood, and we have more of a sense of sport field capacity, where does this change in plan leave us as far as the possibility for acquiring or developing fields? You know, I'm hearing from constituents that there is a real paucity of sport fields, you know, on a regular basis. Hundreds of Ashland children are driving to various parts of the valley because we do not have the capacity to host sporting events on our current fields. If it becomes clear that we are short on fields, as the people who are tugging at my ears insist that we will be, is there capacity to change back, to replace our eyes on these properties that we're turning our eyes from? Just curious your thoughts on that.
Good question. Well, the Hellman Street property, it's kind of a moot point there because like I say, part of what was planned is no longer available. So it's a pretty tight piece of property to try to get athletic fields into. So I think it makes sense regardless to remove that from our plan. The Willow Wind, you could argue, should stay on the plan, but it's really, is anything going to really change? The school has no plans for it. Personally, I could go either way. I think we ought to, I was trying to pair, my approach was trying to get things off the plan that are unlikely to be used. But to your point, this would leave just one piece of property available on our plan. And if that became, if the property owners had no interest, or if it was sold and annexed, so it was annexed, sold, and developed, or sold, annexed, and developed, then we wouldn't have any other options on the plan. So that's really kind of where we stand with that. And so that I think that, but really the only other option that I'm aware of is the Willow Wind, which is in public ownership, and I know of no plans for the school district to do anything. So whether it's on the plan or not, I don't think is that important. But I'm not going to argue either way for that. I think if some commissioners feel strongly about that, we could add it back. If they don't, we don't have to. I just don't think it's going to make a lot of difference functionally either way.
No, I agree about Willow Wind. I don't know that it matters that much. I think the out of the ones that you went through, the one that I'm probably most specifically scratching my head about is the Billing Ranch property on the northwest end of town. I mean, who knows what the current owner is going to do with it? Maybe we will in fact have buffalo wandering that property soon. Maybe we won't. I don't know. But that seems like a large, flat-ish property, and I you know, in my ambitious mind's eye, I could see a North Mountain style park with multiple athletic fields in that property.
Let's see. I'm going to respond to that. I think maybe what we should do is a little more due diligence. Because I don't think that between the riparian area and where the slope gets more extreme, that there really is enough room for a complex. But that's just my take on it. And I think maybe what would be wise is to get more data. And so I think what you're saying is you're proposing one possibility that hadn't been considered, and we probably would make sense to at least truth test that idea before rejecting it out of hand. Commissioner Eldridge.
Thanks. That's an interesting thought, Commissioner Adams. I was actually thinking about the other side of town and the big question mark that remains, the golf course. I think that, you know, there is some possibility that that could be a discussion as well, but of course we really have no, we can't really predict what is going to happen with that land. But in my mind's eye, I've seen that as one potential use of that land as well. So I just thought I'd throw that out there also.
Let's see, is there anyone else? You know, again, I think we've kind of gone as far as we can, but I would like staff to work with Open Space Subcommittee to look at whether there might be more property at Billings that would be feasible for ball fields before we make a determination there. I think regardless, we'd probably, the majority of the property is, I believe, too steep to be feasible. But again, that's all just, it's a bit of conjecture until we actually have some on the ground determination. So I think we should look at that, because it is true that having just one option is a little precarious. So I think that's a good suggestion. Besides that, any other objections to the property that's being proposed for removal? Okay, again, we're not making any decisions here, but and I think what we'll probably do is we'll wait until the subcommittee makes all of its recommendations before it comes before you. From what I'm hearing is the majority of the property probably, there's no objections from commissioners at this point, but that there are some concerns that we might want to leave more property on than what the proposal said. So I think we've gotten some good feedback from commissioners. I think we're ready to move on to the next item on the agenda. Thank you for the feedback. Did I miss anybody? No? Okay. All right, next on the agenda is master fees and rate schedule. And Deputy Director Dials will be leading that discussion.
You are not muted, but we can't hear you.
Can you hear me now? Sorry, I'm using my phone at work because my audio is not working at my station. So basically our goal tonight is to, the City Council is going to be looking at a fee update in June. And they do this through it's called the master rate schedule, and it's their miscellaneous fees and charges. And that goes to the City Council on June 6th. So tonight, what I wanted to do is look at some potential increases for some fees and charges for certain programs to begin on July 1st. Tonight, we're not looking at making any decisions. There's no action being taken tonight. It's just information. And what staff would like to do is bring this back to the commission for potential action next week. I wanted just to take a minute to kind of introduce the project team and go over some of the stuff that we've discussed in the past. So we have a project team for our cost recovery and financial sustainability strategy that has been meeting since September of 2020. And basically, that group is myself and Tara Keywell, Sean Sullivan, and Eileen Glatt. And we have been meeting sometimes weekly, sometimes bi-weekly, sometimes monthly, to try to move something forward to the commission that's based on true costs and true revenue. And basically, we started this in 2020, and we've done a deep dive into all of our expenses and all of our revenues for programs and services that we offer throughout the department. So I want to share my screen. Here it is. So this is a draft that I showed the commission back in 2021, and basically this is a it's called a cost recovery continuum.
Can't hear you.
Rachel, your mic is dead again. Oh no. I don't know if she can see us or. Rachel, Rachel, we can't hear you.
I just sent her a chat.
Oh, smart.
The meeting has been interrupted by technical difficulties. We'll be back with you shortly.
This is a very juicy slide, though, that you can spend a lot of time looking at.
Yeah, that's good.
There's a lot of information.
I pressed the wrong button. I don't know where I stopped talking, or where you stopped talking to me.
Start over.
Okay. So this is the cost recovery continuum, and it's what staff put together based on all of the work that we've been doing for the financial sustainability strategy. Basically, all of our programs and services, from 0% cost recovery all the way up to 100% cost recovery, can fit into one of these categories. So the ones at the bottom of the continuum are more common good programs, community programs, community events, and entry level programs. So beginning classes, things like that. And then if you go up to the top part of the continuum, there are more individualized programs. So things like exclusive use of an area, access for some, intermediate advanced classes, private swim lessons, things like that. Merchant, top of the continuum would be, selling merchandise at the golf course, or selling merchandise or concessions at the ice rink or the pool. So those types of things. So each of our programs and services fit into one of those categories and is subsidized to a certain extent, almost across the board. Any questions so far? And I just wanted to let the project team know, if I forget something, if you want to interject, feel free to as we go through this. So basically tonight, what we're looking at is a few fee proposals for you. So I'm going to pull up my PowerPoint and share my screen again. So we broke it down into a few categories. So the first one is facility rentals. And all of these recommendations in front of you this evening are all things that we as a project team have discussed. And they're also things that where we have the data within the spreadsheet to be able to back up those recommendations. There are other fees that we're not recommending because we are still working through the data and still trying to interpret certain things within the data. And that's why there's only a small amount of fee recommendations this evening. So the first set of fee recommendations are for facility rentals and events. So currently, APRC rents out areas within Lithia Park and pavilions within our park system. And our current fees are listed there, and then our staff recommended fees are next to it. The current cost recovery, the current target for community rentals is anywhere between 40, the low end, which is 45%, and the high end being 65%. Our current cost recovery for outdoor spaces is anywhere between 11% and 20%, depending on the location, the amount of staff time. These spaces are mixed use, and when not available or not rented by the public, they are available for use on a first come, first served basis. The example, and then we also have, so we have these outdoor rentals. We also have the special events fee, and this is the application fee that anyone who wants to do a special event within APRC and within the park system itself has to fill out. So right now, our current fee is $25, and we're looking at a recommended staff fee of $75 for a special event. And special events, as we move forward, do take quite a bit of staff time. We're working on quite a few right now with some public events and private events, and it does take quite a bit of staff time to work through those, meet with the proposer and work through all of the additional fees and charges. So that's why we're looking at that. Here's an example. We put examples together for each of the areas. So this current right here, this is the facility, this is the Cotton Memorial area. And again, you can see here, the low end of the cost recovery is 45%. The high end is 65%. We have our current fee of $75. The current cost recovery is 21%. Our total revenue, $2,100, and that's our total cost. Our total number of rentals was 28. And so basically it's saying that our cost recovery target should be $162.77 in order to get to the low end of the cost recovery. That's not what we're recommending tonight. We are recommending, I'm gonna go back to this slide here, where we're looking at $125 for the Cotton Memorial area. That is one of our highest used areas within the entire park system at this time. So that's the first example, and I'm happy to answer questions as we move forward.
Commissioner Eldridge.
Would you mind giving us an example of the type of special events that are happening, for example, at Cotton Memorial area?
For special events, There are weddings that happen at the Cotton Memorial. We have meetings that happen at Cotton Memorial. I would say special event wise, less. I would say if you're talking about, sorry, are you talking about special events or rent?
I'm sorry,
talking
I'm the one, I see that there's a difference here. So folks that are renting out Cotton Memorial area, are we talking about kids' birthday parties kind of deal?
We're talking about kids' birthday parties. We're talking about weddings. We're talking about class reunions, meetings, all sorts of those types of things.
And to follow up, so along with a rental, is there an agreement to clean the area, or is there any sort of like paperwork that goes along with it that is an agreement of how they will treat the area? Seeing your
Correct, there is. Yeah, they there's a whole process. They have to pay. They pay over the phone with the credit card. We send them the permit that shows all the things that they're agreeing to. They sign it and send it back to us. With special events, like if somebody's going to hold a special event and goes through our special event process, most times those require the organization to have not only pay the fee, but also have insurance and they have to name the city of Ashland as additionally insured because they're, inviting people onto public property. They may be doing things that aren't maybe normally allowed, or having amplification, things like that.
And my other thought that I just in terms of kids' birthday parties, and I mean, how many times do people just have events in these areas and not even realize that they need to be renting them at all? My first thought is, I was like, wow, that seems kind of like a lot of money. And then I think, how many parties have I been to in Lithia Park, like kids' parties? And I would not imagine that they knew that they needed to be permitted, nor did they probably call anyone to do that. So I almost wonder if it would have like an unintended consequence of folks just continuing to use the public space because they think they can, I mean.
Well, all of these areas are first come, first serve, unless there is someone who has booked these areas. There's plenty of areas within the park system that people are just welcome to come and use, yes, including these areas. But members of the public do have the option to rent these areas for special events. If they're like, I need this Cotton Memorial area, I need to for my wedding, and I need to have it from this time to this time, that's when the rental piece would kick in.
Okay, that makes a lot more sense. Thank you for delineating that for me, because yeah, that sounds very reasonable. If you want it reserved no matter what, and you want to be absolutely sure that you have that, then this looks like it makes a ton of sense. Thank you.
Thanks for asking that.
Yeah, I have a couple of questions. How did you determine your fees? You don't get to cost recovery. So what was the rationale for choosing the numbers you did rather than going to full cost recovery, or I guess on the other hand, not changing them?
So, we've talked a lot about this, and I think the reason why we didn't take it all the way to the low end of cost recovery was which would be like 160 something, 62, 77, was because that's a big jump. That's a big jump all in one, to hit on July 1st. And so looking at, backing off of that and doing 125 now, and then next year bringing back something that gets us to the low end of cost recovery. Just making a huge jump like that seemed like a lot to the group. Thank you. And then my other question is on this. I see you've got numbers for everything except Butler Bandshell. You don't have a recommendation yet. Butler Bandshell is actually meeting cost recovery right now, so we are not at this time. We are not recommending a fee adjustment for the Bandshell. So the recommended fee would be $220. Correct.
Thank you.
It's already at 220, so we wouldn't need the fee itself has already been approved by the commission and by city council, so that fee would just stay the same. Okay. All right, I'm going to move on to the next slide. Okay, so we also have some fee recommendations for the Daniel Meyer pool. The Daniel Meyer pool has a range of cost recovery targets depending on the activity. You've got some like youth and adult drop-in, lap swim and youth recreation swim. Those are all drop-in access, which means the target is between 25 and 35%. You also have private lessons that are specialized rec, that basically 55 to 65%. That's individual or small group private lessons with one instructor. You also have punch cards, so that's also drop-in access as well. So what we're looking at, if you look at this, let me go to the next page really quick. So I want to show you this example here. This is for Daniel Meyer Pool, and this shows that a youth and adult admission. And our current fees are $3 for youth and $3.50 for adults. The current cost recovery, 32.7% for youth and 42.9% for adults. With the cost recovery target low end would be $3.54, and for adults would be $4.90. And those are the total revenue, the total cost. The number of rentals is for every youth or adult admission into the pool for that 2.5 to 3 month period. If you go back, we are proposing that youth and adult go up 50 cents for youth and $5 for adults. Those currently are meeting cost recovery, but we feel like making those adjustments will keep us kind of moving the needle forward. For lap swim for youth and adult, we're looking at some minor adjustments, 50 cents on the youth side, $5 for the adults. For private lessons, we're looking at a bigger jump, $10. So from $18 to $28 for a private lesson. And that is because it's very specialized, individual. And then also making some adjustments to our punch cards, which punch cards are a deal because punch cards are, if somebody buys a 10 or 20 punch card, it's equal to 50 cents off per visit. So that is a good deal for the customers if they're coming on a regular basis to lap swim or to open swim or to water aerobics. We are, going through this process. We also are looking at programs that are underutilized or that we can maybe divest from. And we have had available in the past a season pass for youth and adults. And we are looking at discontinuing that based on the fact that we've only had 1 or 2 people take that, utilize that season pass. So we're recommending discontinuing that program itself. And then if you look below here, for private lessons, we are looking at a current fee of $18. Because this is a specialized program, we are looking at a 3-year increase on this program, 28, 34, and 40 for that program in order to get it to meet cost recovery. Questions on this slide or on the Daniel Meyer Pool itself?
I just have one comment. It's very logical the way you've done this, but in this day and age when coins are so just more pain than having value. It'd be nice if there was if you didn't have to have all the kids have to have 2 quarters in addition to their cash. But I see that the only way you can really do that would make sense is to not raise the fee, which wouldn't be the end of the world, because you are actually getting close to your projected cost recovery already. But that was really the only thing that that stood out for me.
Yeah, that's been quite a discussion with our group too. You know, a lot of the things, you know, fall on uneven numbers, and figuring out how we can just, you know, round up or round down. Definitely that's something that we're thinking about.
Commissioner Eldridge, did you have a question or a comment?
Oh, I just, could you review for me? So the admission, the recommended fee is what % of cost recovery at this point, like for the recommended fee?
So
Is it that?
So current fee is $3 and $3.50, and the fee to meet our low end of cost recovery, you'll see on the end, $3.54 for youth and $4.90 for adults.
Okay, so that's what I thought. That's what I was trying to make sure that I remembered correctly. And so, I mean, maybe I'm not completely understanding the spectrum that you showed us before, but my thought, and I kind of liked where Commissioner Lond was going with the lowering the price to $3, keeping it for $3 for kids, because to me that seems like a very important common good for the public, and really critical that we get our kiddos comfortable and in the water and in a safe environment and have access to that. So in my head, subsidizing the children's access to the pools seems to make a lot of sense to me. So and I don't know where you all put Daniel Meyer Pool and the services on that spectrum, but to me, it seems like a really important accessibility issue that would be appropriate for some level of subsidization.
Tara, you want to speak to that?
The only thing I just wanted to remind commissioners is that these numbers are based on our costs from 2018. And so we all know what inflation has done at that time. And we've had several conversations about that. If it's meeting cost recovery at this point, we're still behind because these are 2018 costs.
Commissioner Adams?
Yeah, I had a question and then a thought. My question that I didn't understand as I was looking through this is, how does it cost more for an adult to use the pool than for a child to use the pool?
Tara, do you want to speak to that?
Tara, let me try that one.
I will let Rick do that. Yes.
The logic is the same with when somebody over 65 goes to a store and gets a 10% discount. What's the difference? It's a societal choice. It isn't because there's a difference in the cost. It's a decision that we as commissioners would make because we think there's some societal good or some good that's associated with it. And so oftentimes, we're not the only ones that does this. Oftentimes you get charged less for exactly the same service. Yes, the same service. Same if you go to a movie or go to a play, oftentimes you pay less. So it's just a common thing, but your point's well taken, Commissioner Adams. It doesn't cost us any more or less for one group or the other.
I guess it was the language around cost recovery that had me confused. My suggestion or thought was, I'm kind of thinking along the same lines as Commissioner Eldridge and thinking about wanting kids to have access to that pool and recognizing that for some children in the community, even the current cost of $3 per per time might be high and might be preventing them from accessing, what really it's that pool and the YMCA pool, right? Those are the two places you can swim. I'm thinking about something along the lines of like punch cards for sale in school offices at greatly reduced rates for any child that is on free and reduced school lunches. Thinking about a punch card for $10. It would look exactly like the other punch card. We wouldn't make it it would impinge on our staff to evaluate the financial wherewithal of the family. But I don't know, just something that I thought about in the back of my mind that I sure would like the children in this community who come from families of lesser means to still be able to access this really nice resource.
One thing that's been very successful for us, not at the pool but at the ice rink, is doing some family days, or like we call them like cheapskate days, where we discount under a certain time frame, a couple times a month, and we also have a discount nights for college students as well, to come and skate. So that's something that we could look at incorporating into the proposal, if that's something that you all would be interested in. Any other comments?
Continue.
Okay, I'm going to continue. My last area here is fee recommendations for the ice rink. And the ice rink has a range, like the pool. The ice rink has a range of cost recovery targets depending on the activity. So one of the examples here is the ice rink general admission. It has a cost recovery of 25 to 35%. It's lower. It's like for the common good. It's lower on the continuum. So currently, youth admission and adult admission, the current fee is $4 for youth and $5 for adults. And look at that. The fee to meet the target low end of the cost recovery is $2.59 for youth and $1.65 for adults. So we are not recommending any changes to fees for youth or adult admissions at the ice rink. I just wanted to show you this example. When we plug it into our data, we are meeting cost recovery for youth and adult admissions at the ice rink.
Can I clarify? We're meeting the target of cost recovery, because we're not meeting cost recovery.
We're meeting target cost recovery for youth and adult for that particular program, for youth and adult admissions, or general admissions. It's not the entire cost recovery for the entire ice rink. For the next example I'll show you is the hockey and private ice skating lessons. They fall into a specialized recreation category, which again is for individuals or specialized recreation. And that target is 55 to 65%. So our current fees for adult hockey, $5.50, youth hockey, $5, ice skating private lessons, $20. So you look at the number of rentals or individuals participating in those programs. You see adult hockey is at 136 participants. You see youth hockey at 770 participants, and you see private lessons at 63. So the fee to meet the cost recovery target is here. And that's we really talked about this one. That's $14.02 for an adult hockey player to come play, hockey at the ice rink is a pretty big jump. Tara, did you have a comment?
Yeah, I did have a comment that that there's a few ways to reach cost recovery. There is, of course, reducing fees and costs. That is one way. There is increasing the number of participants. So those, the more people we get in, the more revenue we bring in. That's not always possible. depending on the activity, the capacity, or things like that. Or increasing fees, or a combination of the three.
So correct. So when we're looking at this, we're looking at everything. So back to this youth hockey, adult hockey, private lesson. So these are the fees that we would have to generate to get to the low end of cost recovery for youth and adult hockey. The final example, go ahead.
Yeah, I don't understand the numbers. It says current cost recovery is 50% for all three of those. That seems kind of surprising. That's current, to me, what that's saying is that's what $550 for adult hockey gets us 50% of cost recovery. Is that not what that means?
That's correct, I think.
Okay, if that's the case.
That's incorrect percentage there.
Oh,
Okay.
Sorry.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense. The numbers don't add up.
We'll fix that.
Yeah, because otherwise, the cost recovery target in the right-hand column for adult hockey would be $11. Well, no, it wouldn't either. It would actually be less than 65%. So anyway, it wouldn't be anywhere close to 14. It'd be way less than that. So that's what I'm saying is the numbers just don't multiply out correctly.
So my apologies. It's not an updated form. We do have correct percentages. This is not correct on the sheet.
Is the right-hand column correct?
The very right-hand column of the fee to reach, yes.
Right. Okay.
Just not the current cost recovery percentage is not correct.
Okay, thank you.
And so the final example I'll give is the school groups. We place in the enterprise operation, and so that has a cost recovery anywhere between 65 and 100%. And so our current fee for school groups, and that's for a group of 30, is $50. And fee to meet the cost recovery is $219.98. That's quite a big jump as well. So if you go back to our recommendations for adult hockey admission, we would be looking at an increase. The first year of to $9.25, and then year 2 we would go to $13, and year 3 we would go to $16.50. For private lessons, we would do a jump from $20 to $28, and we would not be looking at this point raising the fee for youth hockey. Is that correct? Did I miss that, Tara? Is that right? Pretty sure that we decided not to increase the youth hockey fee and just focus on the adult fee for now.
That's correct.
Okay. And then I just added helmets in here too, because we do sell helmets both at the ice rink and actually at our parks office as well. So we have a current fee of $8, and we'd be looking at a fee of about $15 for helmets. And then for school groups, we would, again, look at another increase over 3 years, and probably at $50 a pop. So $100 the first year, $150 the second year, and $200 the third year. That still doesn't get us to the low end, but in working with the schools, it's difficult to, they're looking at bringing students and not having to spend a ton of money either. So we're still trying to accommodate those schools that don't have as much money to spend on field trips.
Well, I have a question again about what the fees for youth hockey, no, it's not for youth hockey, but just for youth, is how much?
$5 is our current fee.
Well,
And
no, for youth, it's $4, right?
For youth hockey, it's $5.
That's for.
Why does it say sport on the
Oh.
screen? I'm not talking
In
about
a youth-
hockey. I'm just talking
Okay.
about youth admission.
Yeah, youth admission is $4 and adult admission is $5.
Okay, so then I'm not understanding exactly. If you have 30 people and you're charging them, you're going to be ultimately charging them $200, then that would be $6.67 per person, which is more than the youth admission. And I'm just wondering why. Is it more effort to deal with the group?
That includes the admission and skate rental.
Okay, thank you for that clarification.
I have a question.
Go ahead, Commissioner Eldridge.
Can you go back to the adult hockey admission example that you showed? So yeah, I guess we're looking at it right now, and then you were proposing a 3-year raise, but is it just my imagination? Maybe I'm not understanding, but it seems like there's only a very few number of individual adults that play hockey, and this kind of feels like they're being punished for being sort of low in numbers, because there's a whole bunch of kids that do hockey, but then there's only the small handful of adults that are interested in playing hockey, and that's causing that huge rate increase because we have such kind of low interest. And
Correct.
So I was kind of thinking about that, and I think, gosh, like not that I play hockey, but I don't want to pay $13 to play for an hour or something. Even when I've gone figure skating with my family, I like that it's inexpensive because my kids are going to get tired of it. I'm not going to be doing it for that long. I have kind of a gut reaction to that $9, $10, $13 for those poor few people that love to play hockey. There's just not that many of them, so I don't know. That's what's going through my head. It seems like a lot.
I would answer your question by going back to this, the continuum, and looking at where adult hockey fits on the continuum. It's more of a specialized program. And so when we're looking at that, we're looking at a cost recovery, a higher cost recovery. And in order to, so basically the continuum is you have to charge more for some things and less for other things. And the things that you're charging more for are, someone help me out here from the project team. You are being able to subsidize the common good activities. So that, like, when you talk about youth swim lessons and you talk about youth admission and adult admission into the ice rink, those are the things that's more for the common good. This is more charging more for adult hockey. It's more of an individualized, discretionary program. And that's, as we're bringing fees forward, and we're going to bring more fees back to you at some point, but you're going to see the more discretionary programs we're charging more for those.
Commissioner Adams.
I think that was a really nice explanation. One thing that I'd suggest as we're looking at this in future years, and I would hope that when we're talking about 2 to 3 year increases, that we will see this come before us next year again. What I would love to see as part of the presentation is how the last step fee increase impacted utilization. Right, that at the end of the day, all of us as representatives of our community want to have park spaces that are used by members of the community. So, if for example, Commissioner Eldridge's thought is borne out by our hockey players' skates, so to speak, and they do not put them on the ice because $9.25 is too much to pay. I would love to revisit this and go, hey, I want adult hockey to be happening in the community. And if $9.25 is too much and $5 was closer to the right amount, maybe we actually go back to 7 instead of going up to 12. So I just hope for each area where we raise fees that we also get a look at year-to-year utilization. Essentially, I would like to see utilization impacted little to nothing by any fee increase. And I think our populace will vote with their feet, so to speak, in their pocketbooks.
I'd like to say something on that. We can't be everything to everyone. So there may also be programs that not that many people are utilizing, and we're losing so much money on them, and they fit higher on that continuum, that we just decide that they're not a program that we can offer because we just lose too much money on it. That's the other possibility. I think ideally we wouldn't drop anything, but we have real budget constraints, and I think we need to. That's got to be part of the equation too. So I think both things are true. I'm not disagreeing with Commissioner Adams. I'm just bringing up the other side of that coin. Okay, continue on with your presentation.
Sure, I wanted, yeah, Eileen, did you want to say something about what we were just speaking about?
Commissioner Lant described it very well. So I'm done. Thanks.
Thank you, Eileen. So that actually is what I have for you tonight. I just wanted to go over the fees that we will be bringing you next week to the regular commission meeting, and just kind of get some feedback from you and make sure we were headed in the right direction for next week.
I think it was good to have it at a study session first because we learned a lot.
I have one.
Rachel, I just have 2 more words for you on the ice rink. Curling league. I'm just saying. I've been working on my sweeping muscles. Just putting it out there.
I agree with you, and
I think it's a huge untapped opportunity.
I think you're right.
I don't know how to follow that. I've got kind of a serious comment, and that is it has to do with the cost recovery mechanism. It's been talked about in your presentation, and not just this presentation, but previous ones, as if that number is really just an absolute and a solid number. And I really question how that can be. So for me, I would think more like there'd be some range. It's really hard to come up with something there's so many variables, and to come up with this is the cost recovery seems a little bit optimistic. And so what would help me is to get a presentation on how this cost recovery works, how you came up with this, what was the mechanism, maybe just an example or two. I mean, obviously, they wouldn't want you to go through every cost recovery issue, but to see what you included, what your methodology was to reach that. I think that would be really helpful, and I think it would be helpful to the public too to have some confidence in these numbers, because at this point, it's just like I know there's methodology behind it, but all we're seeing is just the finished product. And I think that seeing how you got there would be useful.
Sure, and that would be something that we could probably come up with a few more examples for next week, for the presentation next week.
Great.
I will mention, actually, sorry, I do want to mention one more thing. We will be bringing back, it's not in my presentation, but I wanted to give a heads up. We have received, we have received quite a bit of feedback and on being able to reserve a tennis court or a pickleball court for, a private, like a group. And we're not saying the entire pickleball court. We're not saying all of the tennis courts. We're saying one. So we will have a fee that we are putting to that as part of our recommendation next week. And I just wanted to mention that we have costs associated with tennis and pickleball, but we also have been looking at what other, for private use of tennis courts and pickleball courts, what others are charging within our community. So with it, Medford Parks and Rec, Central Point Parks and Recreation. So we will be bringing back a number for that as well. That'll be in your packet.
Commissioners, any other questions? Okay, thank you.
Sorry, I do have a question about pickleball. Rachel, do you anticipate that to be controversial? I know pickleball is very important to a lot of people. And when you said that, I thought that's going to make some people very upset.
I don't anticipate that, because it's something that other agencies are doing, and it's feedback that we've heard as staff from the community, pickleball community and the tennis community. So.
And there is a way to make it less controversial, and that is not to allow reservations at the absolute prime times. Get them on the shoulder times when there isn't a waiting line, or all the courts aren't full. Would make it much more palatable for everybody.
Yeah, we would come up with some sort of internal policy for reservation of those courts to go along with that fee. It's not something we're just going to roll out immediately. We're going to work as staff to come up with an internal policy for reservation of a court.
And Rachel, would it be like all automated online? It wouldn't require staff time, would it, and organization?
The way that we would work it is we would have people reserve it online themselves, so it would not take up staff time. There would be a little staff time with signage, but we're going to have to work through that process. We just want to have a fee that we can put to it as we move forward with a process and policy.
Okay, thanks. Sorry, Commissioner Lott, for stopping you from ending the meeting. Go ahead.
Hey, I'm used to it. Next on our agenda is a review of the look ahead, and please, I hope you all got the updated one from today, and that's one I'd like us to be discussing. Anything on there that we need to change? Yes.
So I just, I believe the commissioner, oh, did we lose one, or was Commissioner Bachman not here? I feel like Commissioner Bachman, has he been gone this whole time and I haven't noticed that he hasn't been here?
He's been here the whole time. He's been right in front of my screen.
Okay, maybe just not on the side screen right now. I think Commissioner Bachman mentioned this before, but okay. Well, it would be nice to have this going a little further in advance, and it seems like it would be possible. I really just see 1 meeting and a half of a regular business meeting of what's on the agenda. And I think we could do a little better, at least having some ideas. But that's all. I was like, oh gosh, we only really know for this first meeting coming up, and then a couple items for the next one. So I would like to see a little bit more into the future, so I could see like when the golf course or RFP is going to be dealt with, things like that.
Would it be possible to get some more direction on how far out? Are we talking 2 months, 3 months, 8 months? And then just to kind of reiterate something that Director Black said last time, the further out these are, the more tentative they are. Items on agendas, sometimes there are items that they change week to week and sometimes day to day, depending on things that pop up.
I would suggest a minimum of 3 months, but it looks like Commissioner Bachman has a thought about it as well.
Okay, go ahead, Commissioner Bachman.
I do. Yeah, I think, it's no magic time in the future, but I think we need to look at it as a planning tool. For instance, then not just a planning tool over at least I'd say 6 months, but knowing that the outer stuff is going to shift around. I mean, if you look at the bottom of this look ahead, there are these parking lot topics. Well, all of those should be somewhere tentatively in a schedule. And once we get into the habit of doing this, I think we'll find that I would begin to offer up items that I think I would like to move up in priority. And then there are practical matters about how long it takes to be ready for a particular presentation, all of that. But I do think that we want to, within our goal structure, and I see we're going to be talking about that coming up here on the 10th. Within that goal structure, we should be seeing some piece of all of our goals somewhere on this look ahead. Because we don't want to come to the last 3 months of a biennium and suddenly realize we haven't attended to 3 of the goals. So I think it's an extremely important opportunity here to get into some visionary work where we actually have working plans running parallel for several or topics that make it realistic to achieve our goals. Otherwise, we're just kind of reacting to everything. So there has to be a little bit of time put into that. And I know it may not be somebody's favorite thing to do, but I think it's a very important piece of how we can organize our work. So I'm going to say 3 months for pretty solid expectations for getting to things, and then another 2 or 3 months, 3 months, so 6 months total of what we're looking to do, and then we can kind of get a realistic view of what we're capable of doing and where to put our resources. So thank you, Commissioner Eldridge, for opening that up. I was going to comment on that.
I really want to second the idea that our goals should really be tied to this look ahead.
And the other piece on that, if I can just do a quick follow-up, when we're presenting staff memos on a particular item, it'd be good to have something up in the header that says which goal or goals that this pertains to, so that we understand that we're working on the things that we set as priorities. And that's something I've seen in the city council. I don't know if they're doing it now, but they were doing it in prior administrations. And I thought it was very grounding to know that a goal that was set is getting attention.
I'm assuming that staff is taking close note of this conversation.
That is, yes.
Thank you. Okay. Moving right along.
Wholeheartedly.
Items from commissioners and staff. We're 2 hours into the meeting. Yes, Leslie, or Commissioner Eldridge.
Just super exciting news on the trail front. RVMBA is, so the trail that will hopefully not be referred to for much longer as the Wonder Bailout Trail on the west side, off of Lower Wonder, a downhill only mountain bike trail has started to be built. And so if you are up by Wonder and wondering what's going on, there's a new trail being built by RVMBA. And it should be done in about 3 weeks time or less and open to the public. And that is just really exciting news. Folks in the trail community are really excited about it. So it's great to see something, happening on the ground for the watershed trails. And that's it.
Well, I see no other hands. Oh, Commissioner Dow,
Caroline?
or Commissioner, Deputy Director.
Thank you. I just wanted to mention we APRC hosted the Rogue Valley bike swap last weekend at the Grove, and it was really hot on Friday and Saturday, but we had a good turnout, and we are actually tomorrow morning we are having a wrap-up meeting for that event. We worked with Getting Gear. We had over 50 volunteers that volunteered their time both Friday and Saturday. And just a reminder that the money for that event now goes into the Parks Foundation, and we are still using it. Our overall goal is to continue bike safety education in the schools. So that money is used to pay instructors, to train instructors, to maintain a bike fleet, and it's a really important work, and we really are excited about our continued partnership with not only Getting Gear but also Rogue Valley Transportation District, RVTD. They've been a great partner. So that event was great. One more thing I will say, not about the bike swap, but we do have a longtime staff member that is leaving us. Liddy Van Wy, the Nature Center manager, is moving on to the Oregon State Extension. She's going to be doing some outdoor recreation outreach, nature education for the Oregon State Extension. Her last day is this Friday. If anyone has the time to stop by, we're going to have a drop-in gathering for her at North Mountain Park. And so between 11 and 1 on Friday, if you want to stop by. So that's what I got.
Okay, I see no more hands. And that brings us to the end of the meeting. And thanks everyone for your participation. And I think that we got a lot of great information from staff tonight, so thank you. And on that note, the meeting's adjourned. Good night.
Good night.
Everybody.
Night, thanks.